Hey kids, wanna fuse? Konnichiwa guys, it is me, Faithful Millennials, here with another video. Guess what I'm talking about? Everyone's favorite show about crystals right next to Breaking Bad, Steven Universe. Yes, Steven Universe, that show that I kind of go between hating and loving and hating and loving and hating and loving as I look to see which one gets more views, and that's what I'll base my opinion about. But I'm joking, obviously. Steven Universe is definitely one of those shows that I talk about a lot, almost as much as I talk about MLP, and that's because it's a really polarizing type of show. People love it, and I mean they love it, and then people hate it, and I mean they hate it. But there's a lot of things that Steven Universe does. No matter if you like it or hate it, you have to give them at least some props on. They are a cartoon series that is not afraid to tackle a lot of issues. Issues that most shows don't really ever even come close to touching, and even those that aren't as severe as some of the topics that the show has dared to cover, other shows that do cover those less severe ones put it behind so much like wall of symbolism, quote unquote, that it's extremely hard for anyone without dissecting every little frame to understand what the author's intent really is. And I'm of the mindset that if you need analysis, if you need a bunch of analysis people in your community just to explain basic premises of your show, then you're not doing a good job at actually conveying these ideas. If you have to have a textbook to explain why your story is the way it is, then I personally just don't believe that it was a good enough story. A good story should be able to be unraveled within the story itself for majority of the people or the target audience. And Steven Universe did that with Beach City Drift. Beach City Drift, for those of you guys who don't know, is probably my favorite episode and one that touched upon a lot of different topics that I've never seen any show talk about. This includes sexual harassment, sexual assaults, revenge sex, different relationship things, revenge in general, hatred, all kinds of different things like that that you would never expect to see. These are topics that really aren't covered outside of, really honestly, literature. Literature is really the only thing that goes in depth and stuff like this. A lot of the times, whether it's cartoon, anime, or live action, it's superficial at most. There's very few who will be willing to actually tackle these topics in a realistic manner. And of course, Steven Universe is still a kid's show, so it is still under a layer of symbolism, but it's just a small layer. A layer that if you're an adult or a teenager or someone who can relate to this on any kind of level, you're able to understand what the show is trying to say without having some guy tell you on YouTube. And if you're just a kid who just wants to enjoy an episode, well, it's right there for you too. When they're talking about fusing, we understand what that's supposed to mean. There's multiple meanings, but we can usually agree that it's something deeper than just literally fusing. Some people take it on a sexual nature, some people take it on a metaphysical layer, maybe even a spiritual layer, but there's something more. And if you don't want to explore that, well then it's just an episode about them being upset about fusing because of this person. And let me go ahead and actually recap the episode just in case you guys missed this gem, pun intended, of an episode. Alright, so this is kind of like a two-parter episode. It's following up on the first time that Stefani appeared, when Steven and Connie mastered fusing, or at least were able to pull it off. And they went to kind of a club, and they there met Kevin. Kevin, who is your typical douchebag, kind of self-centered frat guy. He thinks he's cool and awesome and whatever. He knows that he looks good, and he certainly isn't afraid to realize that a lot of girls will like him simply because of his looks. And that he kept on trying to dance with Stefani, kept on trying to get with her, and obviously this was bordering on the harassy end of the spectrum, and it left a very sour taste in Steven's mouth. Now he's back in this very nice looking car, and they decide to beat him at something that he loves to get revenge, which is racing. All throughout this, Kevin's making quips, making jokes, saying how he knows that she's obsessed with him and that he's just going to keep on taking advantage of that. Eventually they realize this, and they realize that they're being blinded by their hatred, and they come to accept that they shouldn't be doing this because of Kevin. They should be doing it because this is something they want to do, and they want to do it for themselves. It's a multifaceted episode that has a lot to unpack. For me personally, I kind of saw it as being a little bit more than just, for me personally, it was more than just sexual harassment that I took this as. Yes, that can be annoying, but someone repeatedly asking you to dance at one night isn't something that's going to leave such hatred. I think the show was trying to convey some sort of deeper slight there, some sort of sexual misconduct, some sort of sexual assault, perhaps something like that. And because fusion is so closely tied to sex, I feel it has to be on that type of spectrum opposed to something else that could be as bad. It's interesting also because they put Stephen, who is a much more emotionally vulnerable character than Connie, as the typical female role of someone who felt extremely violated and repulsed by the actions taken. And this is something that's not even really covered in just actual life. Male sexual assault or harassment victims are often overlooked by the system. In fact, sometimes they're simply laughed out of courts or laughed at by their peers. By legal definition, it's even impossible to rape most males. Not only was the story taking on sexual assault, but they were taking on a form of sexual assault that is often overlooked and never covered. Steven Universe often gets flagged for being an SJW show, or at least having an SJW fan base. However, there are real social injustices that should be called out and brought attention to, such as the events that happen to male sexual assault victims and sexual assault victims in general. Obviously, this is still a Y7 show or very low rated show, so it's not going to be explicit with anything, but obviously Kevin's forceful nature, his over the top theatrics, all of this was screaming, at least to me, that Kevin just wasn't a good guy. Kevin was someone who wanted to force himself upon other people because he felt that there was no way that no one could resist him. It is definitely a rare episode, something that I've never seen tackled in such a way. Obviously, Steven Universe is again a kids show, so there's some things that I have issues with. First of all, because it is symbolic and not explicit, there are certain things that just don't make sense. Like, again, someone just wanting to dance with you repeatedly is annoying. It can ruin a night, but to earn this much hatred just simply doesn't make that sense. There are things also within the episode that just kind of seem dumb, such as Stefani being able to drive, well, not even drive, but drive on an expert level using advanced maneuvering her first time driving. The fact that this car is able to keep up with a modern day supercar by the looks of it. The fact that his car has a meme such as nitrous even. But all these small things are just things that are going to have to happen for it to be able to be catered to both adults and the target demographic. Rebecca Sugar has created an awesome show. And while I don't agree with its fan base, and there are some times when the show gets pretentious, I think this is definitely one of the cases where the episode was above and beyond what you could expect. However, I will admit that the character of Kevin doesn't really go deep enough. He did have a moment in which he sort of opened up about a falsehood about him lashing out at the world because he wants to act as if he feels nothing so that his real pain might vanish one day and he can take the pain away from a loved one as well. And that would have been actually a great story arc for him. Something that didn't just make him this evil villain, this unhuman, unfeeling husk of a person, this character of a person that we are just supposed to hate. There was no redeeming qualities of him, and it would have been all the more powerful if it wasn't so black and white evil. Stefani is good, Kevin is bad, and that's just not how the world works. Usually the people who are the worst have some of the worst history. People were awful to them. Things happened in their life as well. And that's why they lash out. I would have loved to see Kevin have gotten some sort of actual backstory. Some sort of actual meaningful events in his life that led him to be the person that he is. Why is he such a douchebag? What happened to Kevin? That doesn't excuse his actions. It doesn't make it okay for him to do what he does, but it explains them. And that's something that a lot of people want. They want closure. They want a reason as to why. Stefani is okay with not having one. She feels she's completely free now. It doesn't matter why Kevin does what Kevin does. It only matters that she's living her life a-okay, and that the people in her life that she cares about are doing okay. And that's a fine mentality to have. That's a hard mentality to have, and it takes a lot of skill to get that. But I still would have loved to see Kevin have gotten some more development. That being said, this is still one of my favorite episodes of Steven Universe of all time. Let me know what you guys think down below about this episode, and if you guys have a personal favorite as well. I'm in Faithful Limnes, guys. I thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and subscribe if you haven't already. I will be doing more Steven Universe, anime, and other shows, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. And I'll see you guys in the next one.